YouTube channel, and this meeting is now being recorded and live streamed, and I'll take this adherent for this meeting of the Education Resources Committee of the 5th of December 2023. I see that we have Councillors Allison, Anderson and Clark. I have an apology from Councillor Cowie, and I'm aware that Councillor Devlin is substituting and is present at the meeting. Councillor Fagan? No, I have nothing from Councillor Fagan. Put his apologies in. I see that we have Councillor Falconer, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Frame. Don't see anything at the moment from Councillor Frame. I see that we have present Councillors Fulton, Gray, Hamilton. I have an apology from Councillor Horsham, and Councillor Donnelly is substituting for him today, and I see that Councillor Donnelly is present at the meeting. We also have present Councillors Johnson Dempsey, Keat, Kerr, Lambie. Also Councillors Lockhart, Logan, Loudon and McAllen. We have present Councillors McGeever, Razak, Scott, Thompson. Looking for Councillor Walker.
Apologies.
Apologies from Councillor Walker. I have apologies from Councillor Watson. Looking at external representation, we have present John Mulligan. I have an apology from Gillian Coulter. Jennifer Gaffney is present at the meeting. I have an apology from Joan Lennon. Naomi Baxter is present at the meeting, and I have an apology from Christine Hall. And there are a number of officers in attendance at the meeting. And with that, Chair, I'll hand back to you for the business.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Have we got any declarations of interest? No, none that I can see. The minutes of the previous meeting, which is our pages 5 to 14, I can approve that as a correct record. Is there anything? No, no bother. Moving on to monitor items. Agenda item number 3, Education Resources Revenue Budget Monitoring 2023 to 24, which is pages 15 to 18, and I'll ask Louise Harvey to speak, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is the third report for committee this morning on the financial year 23-24, covering the revenue budget position from the period 1st of April through to the 6th of October, which is period 7 of our financial year. Paragraph 4 on page 15 outlines the budget position for the Scottish Attainment Challenge funding, and for our PEF funding we have spent 6.011 million as at period 7, with 3.855 million still to spend, and this includes all our known staffing that is in place in our schools from April through to March 24. In relation to the CEF programme, our spend to date is 1.360 million, with 0.113 million is still to spend by the end of the financial year. And again, this includes all the staffing through to the 31st of March. Committee will continue to be updated with the spend position for 23-24 throughout the year for both streams of the SAC funding. Turning to the main financial implications of the report, 6.1 on page 16, Education is reporting a break-even position against our phase budget as at the 6th of October, and this reflects the net effect of underspends in our early years core budget, offsetting overspends relating to mainstream transport and ASN transport, and also our school placements, which are demand-led. We have in previous reports to committee outlined two main areas of financial risk, and areas where we are working to reduce costs and ensure the risks is mitigated as much as possible. And in terms of an update on these areas, firstly, the cost of transport. The previous report to committee outlined a potential significant increase in spend on transport by Strathclyde Passenger Transport SPT for the school transport, depending on the outcomes of the contract renewals. And this has now been quantified at 4.328 million overspend this financial year, and is being considered as part of the overall management of the resources budget to this financial year. We have had a most recent update at Q2 forecast, and we have had a more positive update with a marginal decrease in costs, with an improvement of another 200,000. From a financial perspective, we are continuing to look at funding options via underspends in other areas, and also our reserve balances to support this issue, and this will be part of the forthcoming probable outturn exercise that we are currently undertaking for the resource and also for the council. On the second issue, on teacher numbers, the position is more positive following the conclusion of the pupil-teacher census 22 for 23. Teacher numbers have been maintained at last year's levels. Pupil support numbers are not yet available from the Scottish Government for reporting, and whilst not confirmed yet from the Government, it is anticipated that grant levels will not be reduced for 23-24 financial year, and the withheld grant of £2.934 million will be forthcoming. And the main reason for this position is around the increased numbers of our NQTs, our newly qualified teachers that we've taken from August this year, the extensive reconciliation that we've undertaken to ensure all records accurately reflected the staffing in our schools, and other changes within the teachers' numbers around PEF and early years teachers being a bit more positive, as well as elements of additional support for schools being maintained. So a positive position we're able to report today. Budget variants, again, our standard report here are outlined at the bottom of Appendix A, and these reflect initial budget movements from Education's New Year budget from the 11th of August when we last reported through to the 6th of October. A couple of main areas to highlight: transfers from corporate items for rates funding, creation of budget to reflect external income, the realignment of budget to reflect our pupil equity and our SEF programmes and our general service delivery movements, and also the realignment of budgets within the resource to reflect activity on our devolved management scheme in schools and also EAMA payments. So if I can refer committee back to paragraph 2, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the break-even position for education resources revenue budget as detailed in Appendix A of the report be noted, and that the proposed budget variants are approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Louise. Recommendations are on page 15. Is there any questions? I don't see any. So can I ask the committee to agree the report? Thank you. Agenda item number 4, Education Resources Capital Budget Monitoring 2023 to 24, which is pages 19 to 22. And can I ask Lorraine to take this? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, Committee. Agenda item 4 then is the Standard Capital Budget Monitoring Report and reflects the budget and spend position to the 6th of October, which is accounting period 7. Section 3 gives the background to the report and advises that the budget reported to the last committee in late September was £19.333 million, and there have been no changes to that budget since that committee. Section 5 then details the financial implications for you and notes the total programme of the £19.333 million. Section 5.2 notes that we had anticipated spend of £7.718 million and actual spend to the 6th of October totalling £7.674. So we were £44,000 behind programme at that point in the year, and that's mainly been attributed to the new Wood Early Learning Centre in Bothwell. Section 5.3 gives a bit more detail on that project and reminds members that previously you were advised that the handover of the nursery would be in November 2023, but we've now had additional information from Building Services in terms of the requirements for additional fire protection barriers, and that's pushed the timescale back to April 2024. If I can then refer committee back to the recommendation in section 2 and ask that the capital programme of £19.333 million and spend to date of £7.674 million be noted. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine. That's great. Other recommendations are on page 19. Is there any questions? Nope. Okay. Can I ask the committee to agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item number 5, Education Resources Workforce Monitoring, August and September 2023, which is pages 23 to 30, and I'll ask Eileen to speak to this.
Thank you. So this is the standard workforce monitoring report for education resources covering the period August to September 2023. So section 4.1 outlines the attendance statistics for committee, and the details are in Appendix 1. So the absence rate for the resource for September was 4.3% compared to a council-wide figure of 5.3%. So the resource absence figure has increased by 1.8% compared to the previous month, and compared to the same period last year, it's decreased by 0.2%. The projected annual average for the resource is 4.5% compared to a council-wide figure of 5.5%. The resource managers continue to follow maximising attendance procedures and work with personnel colleagues to ensure that all the supports are in place to enable employees to return to work and that the appropriate actions are taken. And this is demonstrated by a consistent reduction in absence rates compared to the same period last year. Section 4.2 to 4.5, the details are in Appendix 2, and the main points are that during the period there was 333 occupational health referrals, there was 5 disciplinary hearings, there was no grievances or dignity at work issues raised, there was 172 accidents or incidents recorded during the period, and there was 83 leavers, and of them 28% completed exit interviews. Details of vacant posts are in Appendix 2A, and 319 posts became vacant during the period. 316 of them will be filled, 2 are being removed for savings, and 1 post is filled on a fixed term basis. And if I can just refer committee back to Section 2 and ask that the workforce monitoring information for education resources covering the period August to September 2023 be noted. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. That's great. Is there, the recommendations are on page 23. Can I ask Susan Kerr to come in?
Yep, thank you. 4.3 on page 24. Can I ask, under accident and incident statistics, there it says there were 172 incidents recorded within the resource. Can I ask what these were mainly, to do with?
Oh, sorry. Not in the ball today.
There is further detail in Appendix 2 on page 27, and it talks about the accidents and incidents in terms of how they're specified and how they're recorded, in terms of if they're the injury, the 7-day absence, 3-day absence, and if they're a minor nearness, and then also the breakdown of whether it's a violent incident physical or a violent incident verbal. I can provide more detail in terms of the at the back of that if that's what's required.
Sort of looking to see the detail of how many of these incidents were violent and abusive behaviours in schools. So I'm looking at the fact that the Scottish Government has just recently announced 900,000 to tackle violent incidents in schools, and it's really, that amounts to, as reported by the EIS, £360 per school in Scotland. Now that's not going to wash the face of training in schools to tackle violent behaviour. So I'm just looking to see if anybody has any indication of any updates from the Scottish Government as to how they are going to fund this adequately or add any other resources into this.
Thanks, Eileen.
Yeah, so locally we do have a bit of work that's ongoing with our trade union colleagues in terms of analysis of these types of accidents and incidents, along the lines of what can we do in terms of being a bit more proactive. I'm aware about the Scottish behaviour and the behaviour in Scottish schools survey, the results of which were just issued last week. So in tandem with that, the group we're actually meeting next week will be looking at that work that's going on. And in addition, our inclusion service have also done some work in terms of how these accidents and incidents are recorded, so that we can get improvements in terms of the recording system. So there's quite a body of work that is going on locally around that, and that work is ongoing.
Thank you very much. Is that okay? Yeah.
There, I mean, obviously you're not in charge of the amount of money from the Scottish Government that's coming to tackle this problem, which is paltry. That's all I want to say. I just don't, it's just not going to do it. So,
Thanks very much. Jennifer?
Thank you, Chair. Susan, thank you very much for referencing the BISSR report and the EIS's national survey for branches to complete during August and September on pupil behaviour in schools. The results were made public on the 24th of November and are available to be viewed on the EIS website. I also have the extrapolated results for the branches that completed it within South Lanarkshire, if anybody would be interested in seeing it. But I do note that 63.2%, this is from the national part, 63.2% of branches reported that there were daily incidents of pupil and teacher violence or aggression in their school, and that 72% of branches reported that violence and aggression against teachers had increased significantly over the last 4 years. Almost all branches reported an increase in stress, anxiety and depression for teachers in their schools because of violent incidents. You referenced the 900,000. My understanding is that the 900,000 is not going towards teachers, but actually towards support assistants as well. I wanted to ask Eileen if you happen to be aware, or if you were able to find out the numbers of staff off with work-related stress, specifying in their footnote that it's because of a violent incident.
I'll bring Eileen.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, in terms of how our absences are recorded, we would record it as a psychological absence, and then it's recorded as either work-related stress or personal stress. In terms of the detail about if that's impacted of a specific incident that's happened at work, we don't hold that on record. However, as you know, our early intervention support officer would be contacting individuals that are off with stress-related absences, and then should details come up in terms of violent incidents, and ensure that the appropriate supports are put in place.
Thanks. I think Carol was wanting to come in, Jennifer, and then I'll bring you back in.
Thanks all. I mean, I think firstly it would be disingenuous of me not to recognise that this is a national issue, and the national issue extends to our schools in South Lanarkshire. The children and young people who are coming through our doors now to be educated have got unprecedented levels of need. So from our point of view, we absolutely support the work that is going on to address this issue. We support our teachers and our schools in making sure they're safe and happy places to learn. And Anne and her inclusion team are doing a wheen of work around this issue, both in terms of training, development and direct support for schools. However, I think, again, it would be disingenuous for me to say it can't be solved with training alone. This is an issue that is pervasive in our schools in terms of the needs of these young people. And while we welcome some additional funding, we don't know exactly how much that will be. And because of that, we will bring a further update to committee about what we will best target that on. But there is a resource issue in terms of being able to support our schools effectively. And you know that we don't have a magic wand in terms of teacher numbers or support staff numbers in these challenging times. So it is a case for us continuing to work to prioritise our resources wherever possible to ensure that our schools continue to be well staffed and supported. But members will appreciate the financial challenges that we're up against in order to be able to do that at a level that meets the needs of all. Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. Do you want to come back in?
No, I just want to thank everybody for their comments. Thank you.
Thanks. I think it's a really useful discussion to be having, especially with the report being announced last week. And obviously there is work going on, so but it's useful to know how that's feeding into the work that's already been done in South Lanarkshire. Alec?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just simple on the staffing watch. It's of note that we've got it on a quarterly basis, the change there, but the number of employees required in education varies quite significantly over the year. Would it not be more informative if we had a year-on-year change to the staffing levels?
Thanks, Eileen.
Yeah, we can provide that. The staffing watch, as you know, is a quarterly return that we do to the Scottish Government, so we do have that available. So I can certainly make the figures available for year on year if that would be useful.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. If there's no further questions, I will ask the committee to agree the report.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Heading on to the items for decision, which is agenda item number 6, provision for LGBT plus inclusive education in South Lanarkshire schools, pages 31 to 40, and I'll invite Anne to speak to this. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to inform members of the detail of the provision of LGBT+ inclusive education in South Lanarkshire schools and to seek support for the next steps proposed to ensure LGBT+ inclusive education is embedded across our schools. Section 3 of the report details the background and, importantly, that education in South Lanarkshire is based on an inclusive ethos that ensures that all learners experience learning environments where diversity is valued and are treated fairly, have equality of opportunity and experience a sense of belonging. Paragraph 3.3 highlights that an inclusive ethos in an education context embodies values of equality, diversity and collaboration. Section 4 describes the legislative and policy context that support the equality and diversity agenda in relation to LGBT+ issues across education contexts, and paragraph 411 references the Equality Act, which provides a framework of discrimination law that protects individuals from unfair treatment and promotes a fair and more equal society. Section 5 of the report describes the national developments in education in relation to LGBT+ education in our schools. Paragraph 5.1 highlights that in 2018, Scotland became the first country in the world to commit to advancing LGBT+ education in schools, and goes on to describe the resources and training materials available to schools and establishments to support them in progressing the agenda. The resources and training materials managed and delivered on behalf of the Scottish Government by the Time for Inclusive Education, or TIE charity, support 7 themes across the curriculum, and these are listed in paragraph 512. They are understanding the Equality Act, the UNCRC and human rights, identifying prejudice, discrimination and bullying, recognising and challenging gender stereotypes, diverse families, including LGBT+ parents and siblings, celebrating diversity and difference, the history of LGBT+ equality movements, and LGBT+ past and present figures and role models. Importantly, paragraph 515 highlights the production of an information leaflet for parents, which has been developed by the National Parent Forum of Scotland. Section 6 of the report details the local developments that support the delivery of LGBT+ education in South Lanarkshire schools and establishments. Paragraph 6.1 describes the authority's Treat Me Well anti-bullying guidance, which was produced in partnership with Respect Me, Scotland's national anti-bullying service, and it highlights that the guidance takes full account of the national legislative and policy landscape, including equalities legislation and the supporting transgender young people guidance produced by the Scottish Government in 2017. Paragraph 621 describes in more detail the Scottish Government's LGBT+ training delivered on their behalf by TIE. The training is delivered in 2 stages, and I would ask members to note that currently 33 South Lanarkshire schools are registered on the Scottish Government's LGBT education platform, and 183 teachers have completed the Stage 1 e-learning course. Paragraph 6.2 offers information in relation to the highly successful LGBT+ inclusive education showcase event, including workshops, which was presented by TIE and took place on the 8th of November this year in the banqueting hall here at Council Headquarters. The session was attended by around 100 staff from across education resources and covered key information, including national expectations, principles for effective practice, and a showcase of available resources. The feedback was very positive, with 100% of attendees feeling that their confidence in delivering LGBT+ inclusive education had increased and helped them in considering the next steps for their establishments. Some sample comments from participants are noted in the paper, with one participant particularly highlighting the various blend of approaches and resources which could be used to build an appropriate curriculum, and the training and support on offer from schools from TIE being very reassuring. Another commented that this was an excellent training session, and I'm looking forward to doing the Stage 1 modules and looking at the website and toolkit. Paragraph 6.3 provides information on those South Lanarkshire schools who have achieved various stages of the LGBT Youth Scotland Charter Award and those working towards accreditation, which are 9 secondary schools in total. Turning to paragraph 625, it's notable that a member of staff and 2 pupils from Duncanrigg Secondary School were members of the National LGBT plus Inclusive Education Implementation Group, which was formed to support implementation of the National Working Group recommendations, and that work led to Scotland becoming the first country in the world to commit to embedding LGBT plus inclusive education in Scotland. Paragraph 6.3 describes the work of our own Educational Psychology Service in progressing their understanding of the themes of equality, equity and diversity by engaging LGBT Youth Scotland to deliver training across the whole service. The service has committed to undertake work towards the Charter Award and will work collaboratively with the Youth, Family and Community Learning Service to promote pupil participation and voice. Paragraph 6.4 describes the work of the Youth, Family and Community Learning Service across the 4 localities of South Lanarkshire to provide safe, supportive and nurturing spaces for LGBT plus young people to meet regularly and work with partner agencies in addressing themes and issues of relevance to them. Turning then to section 7, which describes the next steps for us in relation to the provision of LGBT plus education in South Lanarkshire. Paragraph 7.1 details some of the findings from the Life in Scotland for LGBT plus Young People report, which was published in February this year. The report offers a snapshot of life in Scotland for LGBT plus young people across a range of areas, including education, health, rights and experiences of discrimination. The report highlights that less than half of participants said that they feel supported as an LGBT young person in education, and in addition, 67% reported experiencing homophobic, biphobic or transphobic bullying, and 82% of secondary learners reported that they hear anti-LGBT plus language and slurs used at school. During September 2023, an audit was conducted across head teachers in South Lanarkshire schools to provide a baseline for conducting our future work in this area. There were 64 respondents, and the report highlights in paragraph 7.2 that 33% of respondents did not feel confident in reporting LGBT plus children and young people, that 64% were not aware of the LGBT plus Inclusive Education National Platform, 32% have a pupil equality group, 24% have carried or partially carried out an audit of class and library texts to ensure LGBT plus representation, and that there is a need to further develop partnership with parents in promoting understanding of LGBT plus inclusive education approaches. In terms of moving forward, paragraph 7.3 highlights a number of areas for action. Following the TIE Showcase event, a working group will be set up with membership from across education resources to examine the actions to be taken to further support schools to embed LGBT plus inclusive education in their practice. The working group will consider a broad range of issues arising from the event, including the need to consult with pupils, parents and carers. Paragraph 7.4 describes how schools will be asked to place a focus on the equalities agenda during session 24-25, and for this to be included in school improvement plans. Schools will set this in the context of the UNCRC legislation. During session 24-25, all teaching staff will be required to undertake the Scottish Government Professional Learning Course, Stage 1 e-learning module, and this will be included as an element of the annual mandatory training programme. Stage 2 training can be accessed by schools following the completion of Stage 1, and education resources will monitor uptake of this with the aspirational target of all schools completing this training. Paragraph 7.1 describes how the National Anti-Bullying Guidance is to be updated and launched by summer 24, and following this, the South Lanarkshire Treat Me Well guidance will be updated with the inclusion of clear guidance in supporting LGBT plus young people. Paragraph 7.6 highlights the issue of underreporting in relation to homophobic bullying. In response to this, further guidance emphasising the importance of accurate reporting has been issued to schools. Building on recent training delivered by Respect Me, a network of equalities coordinators will be established across all schools to facilitate information sharing and development of policy and procedures to ensure compliance with the legislative and policy framework and to promote sharing of best practice. In summary then, Section 8 highlights that Education Resources will continue to work in partnership with parents, carers and stakeholders to ensure that all young people can learn in a safe, supportive and secure environment that fosters the development of skills, self-esteem and resilience in our young people. Continuous professional development opportunities that focus on equity, equality and diversity will continue to be promoted to help ensure that our staff are well equipped to make this a proactive element of the curriculum and to ensure that any instances of bullying behaviour are dealt with swiftly and effectively. Section 9 highlights that there are positive implications for staff in undertaking the Scottish Government Stage 1 e-learning module. Turning back then to Section 2 of the report and the recommendations, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations. To note the range of activities in place to support the delivery of LGBT+ inclusive education across South Lanarkshire schools, and to approve and support the action proposed to further embed LGBT+ inclusive education across South Lanarkshire schools. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Anne, for that very good report that's been put in front of us. I think that there has been an absolute power of work being done by the Education Department to build on what has already been happening in schools, and I think that shows in this report how extensive the work has been. But I think the report also shows that there is obviously a bit more work to be done, especially with the results of the survey that came out. So I think that going forward it shows a clear path of how to do that, and I know that equalities in general is going to be a big piece of work for education in the next year, and I look forward to seeing how that progresses. But thank you so much to you and your staff, and I thank the unions and TAI and Karen Riley for meeting with us and having good chats and good discussions around it. So thank you very much, Anne. Katie.
Hi, thanks very much, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Yep, thank you very much, Anne, for that comprehensive report. As Lindsay said, there was a lot of good work which we knew was going on already, but there's clearly a lot of work still to do as well. It's no secret that my group were very disappointed with the delay to decision about using the national training materials after the SNP motion at full council to bring this forward had been remitted back. So I'm really pleased to see that this is finally for decision today with the second of the recommendations about further embedding LGBT+ inclusive education through various actions, including training. In particular, we'd welcome that the professional learning e-module will be included as an element of the annual mandatory training, and that there's an aspirational target of all schools completing that training as well. All things that we'd asked to be considered at the time as well. And it's also great to see the progress that's been made towards this already, with 33 schools in South Lanarkshire already registered on that platform, especially given the clear need for staff to feel confident and supported, which you can see reflected in the stats at 7.2. As well. And from speaking to TAI, we knew all along that this was a CPD need which many across the country had identified, as well as teachers and staff in South Lanarkshire. 6.2.2, the report on the TAI showcase there, that feedback is incredibly positive, with 100% of attendees feeling that their confidence in delivering LGBT+ inclusive education had increased and helped them to consider next steps for their establishments. I think anyone who's been asked to fill in any sort of evaluation after a training programme, their eyebrows would be raised at that to see such positive feedback. And the quotes are fantastic as well. I think that speaks very highly of the quality of the materials. I know one of my colleagues has a few questions that they want to pick up. I've just got a brief one just now. At 7.3, there's a section about a working group being set up following the TAI showcase, which took place at the start of November. This working group will be set up with membership from across Education Resources, and there's a few services mentioned in there, including representation from schools, EdPsych, youth, family, community learning. I just wondered if you could tell us if this is a short-term working group, sort of meant to be established as this programme of training is rolling forward, or will it stretch over more the sort of start of schools beginning to embed that training into their plans? And the YFCLS representation, is it staff or is it going to be young people themselves as well involved in that working group? Thanks, Anne.
Sorry, 2 minutes. Computer playing up.
Will I shout? Okay, shout. Use my teacher voice.
Thanks.
The working group, obviously in the initial stages, the purpose of the working group is to sort of set things, get things going very quickly. But I would envisage that it would play a monitoring role in the sort of medium to longer term, just to make sure, that people, that what our materials too need to be refreshed and kept updated in line with developments too. We worked brilliantly with Ty actually on the day of the showcase event, and Jordan Daly too was just they did the evaluations and took them away, so we had to contact them after the event to get the statements from the evaluations, and I know that they were absolutely delighted with the content of the evaluations, and also offer training for other aspects of the organisation. So for example, they've got a specific input that they'll do only for head teachers. The showcase event was for a range of staff, but they have specific inputs that they can do for specific groups of staff. So we're still learning, and we're still learning about the resources and opportunities that are out there to kind of support different groups of staff and children and young people. And the pupil voice element is really important. We've got a great resource here in South Lanarkshire with the Youth Family and Community Learning Service and the LGBT groups across the 4 localities. So we will absolutely use those voices to help inform our practice moving forward. We also recently had a Youth Family and Community Learning Service conference, just a couple of weeks ago actually, and one of the workshops was presented by one of the LGBT plus groups, very, very articulate, and really, we need to use that resource and absolutely commit to doing that. Okay.
Thanks very much. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to officers for the report. I'd like to welcome what's in it. I still don't see why our motion couldn't have passed at the time, but I'm pleased that in this report there's a recognition of the positive work nationally, locally in our schools, especially from our teachers and school staff who do some great work already. But more importantly, identified actions that we can take, as there's always more that we can do to make LGBT young people feel safer and more supported in our schools. It mentions 7.6 recording and monitoring 6 incidents of homophobic bullying reported, and I'm pleased and it's good to see a recognition that these certainly won't be the full figures. I know that we all know there will be much more than that. I can back up the point about underreporting from my own experience. There will certainly be many instances of subtle homophobia, such as calling something gay to mean bad. I certainly wouldn't have felt confident to report this while I was at school because it was just what happened. It was part of the culture, which I know we're making good strides in addressing. And I understand you might not have these figures to hand, but do you have the figures for transphobic and other types of bullying other than homophobic bullying? Understandably, we don't have those figures just now, but and secondly, I also don't think I see a mention on reporting back to the committee on our progress, which was something we mentioned in our motion. I think it would be useful if we could have updates to this committee on our progress towards our targets. Particularly, I think it would be useful to perhaps have a yearly update on the head teachers audit that was mentioned, which I think will be really useful. So, of course, primary that we assess the views of LGBT young people in this, and I know we recognise it, but the responses of head teachers are, of course, still important to track. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll bring in Carol.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Your comments are really welcomed. And yes, I'm glad that that members can see the power of work that's gone behind putting together this report. In response to your specific question, we absolutely need to keep this issue live, and it notes in paragraph 7.4 that there is going to be a push next year around equalities and that will cover the full umbrella of equalities and some of the good work that's going on, for example, about anti-racist behaviour and about disability discrimination. So our proposal is to absolutely, keep monitoring the LGBT plus issue, but also to bring regular updates back to committee around the wider sphere of equalities and make sure that we are covering the full gambit of equalities. But absolutely, I think your point about the survey is a point well made. There's no point doing a survey and then doing work if we don't then find out if that work has made a difference. So we will absolutely follow that up once the schools have completed next year their level 1 training. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Thompson?
Thanks very much, Chair. It's a comprehensive and informative report, and I welcome it. And some of the comments made, I can associate there. I think the really important people here, the young people, and that's why Duncan Rigg, pupils here, being involved is so important, and I welcome that. And it'd be great to see more young people being right at the centre of this, because they're the ones that directly affects. And the word equality came in a few times there. It's so important. The minute we get equality right, in fairness, we've got a good thing happening. I think this is a work in progress, but I would say a good positive one so far. So thanks very much to everybody involved there. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Bert. I'll note that comment. I'm just going to get rid of you. Can I have Naomi, do you want to make a comment?
Thanks very much. So yeah, firstly, thank you. I will happily welcome anything that tackles bullying and promotes tolerance in our schools. Our children have enough to deal with without facing discrimination of any kind. I'm really pleased to hear as well, because really my first question was about, so section 4.1 talks about all the protected characteristics, and obviously the focus of this is our LGBT plus community, but it's really great to hear that equalities in general is going to be a focus over the next year, and it would be great if we could have some information on what that's going to look like. So we obviously have a full report on how we're going to support our LGBT children, but we don't have information then on how we'll support and help those with disabilities, those of different races, religions, beliefs. It would be great to have some more information on what that's going to look like. On page 38, that's section 7.6 with the incidents of discrimination reported. We had 84 other incidents. It would be great to have a breakdown of what those incidents were based on. I don't know how many of those will have been race or disability or, like linked to the other protected characteristics. So I would really welcome having a breakdown of those. Yeah, and I suppose one of my other points is you're asking me to agree on something today that's going to be rolled out as a mandatory CPD that I actually haven't seen the material for. I don't have access to it. I've been able to find everything else referred to in this report online, but because I'm not a teacher and I don't have a teacher email address, I can't access the stage 1 learning. Not that I can see, so please do point me in the direction of that if I'm just missing it. Yeah, and it was just really, we've talked about the working group already, but just to highlight that you've talked about consultation with parents and pupils and what will that look like. I think often things go for consultation and don't actually get much feedback from parents. So as the parent rep, how can I help that? How can we get that word out there? Because I know parents stand at the school gates and have lots of opinions on things, and my purpose here is to try and bring those comments from the school gates to this room, to the ears of people who are listening and making the decisions. So anything I can do to be helping in that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Naomi. Anne, do you want to take anything?
Pause. Teacher voice. There will be a meeting of the group in January, Okay, so that the purpose of that meeting will be to start to plan the way forward, because remember we're planning the work for next session, and you correctly highlight the breadth of the equalities agenda, and also the core element of anti-bullying as well. So the work will be developmental. I had mentioned in the course of presenting the paper that the Scottish Government's refreshed anti-bullying strategy was to be launched in summer next year. So we will work in the context of that as well and refresh our own. So that's important. In terms of the underreporting isn't only an issue for this area of work. It's an issue. So we're constantly nagging. And our most recent reminder has been around this area of work and making sure that incidents are recorded appropriately. You can log on to the Stage 1 learning module if you don't work in a school but do have a GLOW email address, because when you log on you have to indicate the school that you work in so that they can record numbers of staff from particular schools. But there is another, you can tick other, but I'm thinking you won't have a GLOW email address, so you probably won't even be able to get that far.
No.
So I can make some inquiries and find out if it's more widely available, and I can let you know about that. Happy to do that. So just to say, yeah, happy to bring the strategy to a meeting, if the chair's amenable to that, just to share with members the general direction across the spectrum of equalities, and the direction that we're moving in, and remembering too that we're placing that within the context of a children's rights framework. Yep. But that's a big piece of work for us for next year, so it's not something that we've been able to turn around since from last month to this month, for example. That's something that we're focusing on. We find, I think, just finally, our approaches to consultation with parents kind of tend to work. I think we kind of do fairly well, she says, touching wood, on that front. But we do use a range of approaches to consultation. There's obviously the Parents Consultative Group, there's lots of different types of approaches, and schools will do individual consultation with their own parent groups, because every school's different, their context is different, their stage in the journey is different. So I think what we will see is a range of approaches to consultation with parents, and a range of views and opinions coming back. So I'm sure it's going to be very interesting.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks very much, and thanks. Naomi, have you got anything to add, or are you? No. There you go.
Thanks. No, just like, yeah, brilliant. I'll look forward to seeing all of that, and understand that lots of it is much bigger than something that will happen in a couple of months, and refreshing your own guidelines and resources will be great, because that Treat Me Well, when I looked at the links towards the end of that, I couldn't see, and again, please point me out if I've got this wrong, but I couldn't see any specific outside resources for like disability, race, religion, belief. So there were some that kind of were general. There were a lot of mental health. There were, so maybe at some point you can go through them with me and point out which ones are supporting other protected characteristics. Would be great. Thank you.
That's great, and I'll bring in Carol in a minute, but I think it is really important if we do have a paper, that because I think this paper's really comprehensively set out what we're doing around the LGBT plus stuff, and actually you see the power of work that's going on, but that there will be other work going on throughout the other protected characteristics that would be really useful for this committee to have a look at, especially if there's a lot more work going on, and the underreporting stands out there, because definitely there'll be more than that. I think that even the report that came out last week talking about misogynistic bullying and stuff like that, it'll be really, from the IS, it'll be really important to look at these things as well. I'll bring in Carol for comment, and then I'll bring you in, John, if that's okay.
Thank you. Just to pull some of that together, I think the points that have been raised are exceptionally sensible. This is a massive piece of work. This is a huge piece of work, and as Anne rightly said, we are going to firmly set all our equalities work under the legislation of the UNCRC, and we are going to ask schools from next session, and members will appreciate that schools like in particular set their work plans quite a bit in advance. So currently at the moment, schools are halfway through their own improvement plan. But we're going to give them quite a bit of notice in terms of saying we want everybody on board with the UNCRC next year, and that will be our umbrella heading. Now, sitting under that will be the likes of the mandatory training for TIE Level 1, but we've also done a very interesting piece of work about decolonising the curriculum and about anti-racism. So that gives us an opportunity to pull all these things into the umbrella and promote true equalities amongst our school, fairness, respect and tolerance, and absolutely running beside that will be a focus on zero tolerance of any discriminatory language or behaviours in our school. So that's very much the approach we're taking. I can't say that we'll be sitting here this time next year and it will all be wrapped up. You know, we'd love to be able to say that, but that won't be true. However, I hope we can bring a very comprehensive report back to committee reflecting all the protected characteristics, including an update on our LGBTI work to hopefully reassure you. The other thing is around parents. I'm actually meeting with all the parent chairs on Thursday. And we'll be doing so again come the kind of springtime. I don't think there will be room in the agenda for specific discussion about this week because there's an awful lot else I want to say around attainment and exam results and inspections. However, we will definitely put that on the agenda, Naomi, for May time when we've got some fuller information about the way that all schools are going to tackle this next year. And I suppose the final point I'd like to make is all these developments, I reckon, are best when they're done in an integrated way where all stakeholders are involved, where it's based on need. And some schools have different needs than others. So while we will be asking everyone to get very firmly on board the equalities train, we are very cognisant of the fact that some schools are further on with bits than others. So it is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It will continue to be a bespoke approach that meets the needs of different schools and their communities. Thanks.
Thanks, Carol. John?
Thanks, Chair. I just note 2 or 3 points that I was about to make, Carol has just made. First of all, I would like to endorse this report. I think it's a very good report. It's not only informative about actions that are in place and actions that are to take place, but I think from our perspective, it's a very measured, it's a very rational and a very coherent report. What I like particularly is the fact that this training and the activities associated with that, the working groups, the action plans, etc., are an attempt to ensure that this issue is embedded in the culture of the school. And wherever I think back to educational experiences that I've had, when you parachute something in out of the blue, it doesn't work. What this report is showing is what's already been happening, what's already in place, what needs to happen, and how that can happen. And that's why I say it's a very measured approach. I applaud those who put the report together for the setting of the context, for the action plans that are proposed, for the working groups. And as Carol has just said, schools have different needs. One size doesn't fit all. And I'm sure that with the backing of the working groups and the equalities coordinators, etc., this initiative will find its proper place within the curriculum for many years to come. It won't be solved overnight. It won't be solved in a year. But I think the framework is there for the range of activities and the range of guidance. And I would like to suggest that the importance of bringing the young people and the parents of the school community into the discussions as this is going forward is paramount. So congratulations to those who put the report together. I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John, I'll bring in Gavin.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just to echo John's sentiments, I want to put on my record my personal thanks to all the staff within Education Resources. This has been a power of important work, and it's been a bit of a learning experience for probably myself and Lindsay, and that goes to our union colleagues, Liam and Jordan from the Thai campaign as well. And I think an important point to make is the fact that we've had this platform to discuss, take stock where we are, where we need to improve, what we can do to improve it. That's invaluable. That's the work, the due diligence, the comprehensive and robust approach that we all young people and our staff within South Lanarkshire Council. And I'm grateful to all the staff for putting this paper forward and letting us air it and discuss it. In all its finesses, the bits that are not so well, the bits that we are doing well, and giving it its proper place. And I look forward to working alongside our staff and our stakeholders to improve the experiences of LGBT plus young people in the coming weeks and months. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gavin. Without any further questions, I will ask the committee to agree the report.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Perfect timing, it's 11 o'clock. So I will have a wee 5-minute break just now. So coming back at 11:05. And I will continue with the agenda then. Thank you. everyone. If we can reconvene, that would be fabulous. Thank you very much. We'll head on to items for noting. Agenda item number 7, primary raising attainment and ECEL data, pages 41 to 50. The recommendations are on page 41. Is there any questions? Not that I can see. Can I ask the committee to agree to note the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item number 8, secondary raising attainment strategy, pages 51 to 62. Recommendations are on page 51. Can I ask Councillor Loudon to ask her a question?
Hi, thanks very much, Chair. Just a brief question about section 8.2 in this, where it talks about enhanced mentoring work to support young people make more informed decisions around course and career choices. And it was just to unpack that a bit. Are we talking about internal to schools, as in staff mentoring? Are we talking about MCR pathways specifically? Just wondered if could I be a bit more detail about the range of mentoring that was meant by that?
Thanks. Can I ask Stuart to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor. It covers, I suppose, the whole spectrum. Really what we would be looking to do is, as part of a review of the senior phase activity and the ongoing reform agenda, is to look at progression pathways, the range of opportunities available to young people, and of course part of that then is around making sure that they understand what's available and the opportunities that are there. So that would include the staff that we have in school, but where we have other programmes in place to provide mentoring support, MCR, some of the Pathfinders work, some of the other external areas. I guess the aim is to make sure that all young people have access to good quality information, but more than that, to the sort of support, encouragement, and allowing themselves to have high aspirations and expectations, and being able to see that there is a realistic prospect of working their way through that. So I think that aspiration lends itself across the piece, starting with the teachers in our schools, particularly pupil support staff, and certainly when we look at the curriculum management and the curriculum development, timetabling and so on, making sure that those offer appropriate progression pathways as well. And of course part of that then is about the recognition of the range of qualifications, the range of programmes that are out there. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stuart. Councillor Keats.
Thank you very much, Chair. It was just to draw members' attentions to paragraph 4.7 in the work around the statistical summary report. I think that's a brilliant move, and I think it emphasises and echoes the proactive move from Education Resources to raise attainment across the authority. And I think that's something we should all be getting behind and welcome. I think it's a brilliant move from Education Resources. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your comments. Carol?
Just to I echo Councillor Keats' comments there. We bring a lot of material to Education Resources. Attainment of children reading and writing and through their qualifications remains absolutely a key focus of our resource. And whilst there's not been the opportunity perhaps to present these papers today, members need to be reassured that the amount of work going in to making sure that our children can read, write and count and achieve in a whole range of subjects is absolutely significant, and the work in the centre is dedicated to making sure that that happens. Both primary and secondary teams have pulled together a revised attainment strategy, and that's the subject of both of those papers. And while members will note that there have been significant improvements in a lot of the key measures, there is still work to be done, and our aim is to be able to bring a paper this time next year that shows that the work that we are doing is making a difference. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Carol, is there any further questions? Nope, if there's no further questions, I'll ask the committee to agree the report.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 9, Summer Holiday Provision 2023, which is pages 63 to 70. The recommendations are on page 63. Is there any questions? No. Okay, can I ask the committee to agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. agenda item number 10, Pathfinders Initiative Care Experienced Children and Children on the Edges of Care, pages 71 to 116. The recommendations are on page 71. Is there any questions? Nope. Thank you. We've got lots. Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Can I refer you to page 72, item 4.4? I mean, it's wonderful work, what everyone is doing, but I find these numbers extremely confusing, trying to translate them. For instance, you've got a list of the total number of referrals, social work, support sessions, and then you go on to outcome data. For instance, 81% maintained or increased participation, 60% recognized positive improvement. I find these numbers very confusing. 81% of what? You've got a whole list of numbers at the top, and 60% of what? I find it doesn't really sort of answer anything. I know it says things are okay, but I just find the presentation of these numbers don't really reflect, or if you like, impart the information maybe they're designed to give.
Thanks, Richard. Maybe Anne can help with that.
Thank you. The percentages are linked to the total number of participants. So that would be total number of referrals. So where we say 81%, it would be 81% of 658. But what I can do is I can have that translated actually for you and get it to you so that it's made clearer to understand. I'm happy to do that. But the percentages are linked to the total number of participants, which is the first number in the table there, total number of referrals.
Thanks, Anne. Okay. Is that all right, Richard?
Well, yes, thank you. I would like it. If you could do that, that would be great. I just find, to me, maybe it's just my old brain, I can't quite translate these numbers, that's all. Okay.
No problem.
Thank you. That's fine.
In a committee who's extensively spoke about equality this morning, there's no such thing as old and young brains.
Thank you very much, and very kind of you.
Thanks very much, Richard. Can ask Katie to come in.
Thanks very much, Chair. There's obviously an incredible amount of work represented in this report. With it being longitudinal research, I didn't want it to pass without comment. I was lucky enough to bump into Dr. King earlier this year at a school event. And on page 84, we've got a summary that she's written where she basically thanks everyone involved, which I thoroughly agree with. But obviously, when you're writing about other people, you can't really thank yourself. So I would like to put on record my thanks to her and her dedication to this programme over that period of time. If you just draw people's attention to a couple of the quotes which are on page 73, which are really fantastic. The top two quotes under 5.3 there talks about the caring, compassionate and empowering relationships which Pathfinders establishes with young people, creates a safe, secure and growth promoting environment which can have a transformative impact on the lives of young people. And the second one about how Pathfinders contribute to building resilience in local communities by working collaboratively with parents and carers, providing unstinting emotional and practical support, ensuring their voice is listened to and heard, and empowering them and building confidence. Really is a nice summary of all of the work here, and actually a summary of many of the things we've been talking about today as well. I just wanted to put that on record. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Katie. A lot of us know Dr. King, and the work that she does is absolutely amazing. So I echo your sentiments as well. I don't think Richard wants back in, but I'll see. Are you wanting back in, Richard? Is that a mistake?
It is a no.
I'll take that as a no, yes. Can I ask the committee to agree to note the report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 11, update for education resources Risk Register and Risk Control Plan, pages 117 to 134. The recommendations are in 117. Can I ask Councillor Lydon?
Thanks. It was just a line in this that I thought was a wee bit opaque. So again, it might just be me, but it's just from understanding. At 6.1, there's a section which reads, following the completion of claims analysis reports by insurers, various areas of work have been identified to mitigate insured losses. Those which are affected education resources includes a property insurer survey programme, which included 2 primary schools, and we've got 2 of them listed there. My understanding of that is essentially, so a report was produced by insurers saying that the following steps needed to be taken to mitigate against loss. Would that be correct? And if so, can we have maybe some more details on what that actually was? Thanks.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, we get reports in from Gallagher Bassett on individual failings in schools that could possibly, result in accident, incident and so on with the fabric and different goings on within the school. I've not got the details of those reports for St Bride's or Crosshouse, but I can certainly get them to you if that's okay, so you know exactly what they are.
Thanks very much. If there's no further questions, I'll ask the committee to agree to note the report.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 12, Education Resources, notifications of contracts awarded 1st of April to the 30th of September 2023, which is in pages 135 to 140. The recommendations are in pages 140. Is there any questions? No questions. So can I ask the committee to agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. No notification of any urgent business. So on that note, I will wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and just note my disappointment that the committee, the education team, decided not to wear their matching pyjamas today. Their Christmas pyjamas. Bah humbug indeed. And thank you very much, everyone, and with that I'll close the meeting.
Thank you. Well done, well done, well done.
Thank you.